Hey, what's going on, everybody? Thanks for coming back and listening to this one. This one I will put on YouTube as opposed to my birthday video. I just got into a thread on Facebook and about some wrestling in Oregon, and a couple guys were talking about it, and then one of the guys, old friend of mine named Jim Cooley, says that wrestling in Oregon died back with Don Owens and Sandy Barr, and I partially agree with it. My comment was, I made a lot of money there when I was working with Roddy, but it just my whole point. A lot of people say, the generational thing. So as I put that comment up, another good friend of mine, the promoter Scott from West Coast, said give him time because he's starting to do some stuff up there, and he's got a phenomenal product, fucking amazing product. I don't enjoy going to a lot of shows, and that's the one that I really look forward to going to. But I had reposted a comment back to him about what I kind of meant by that, and then former student of mine commented what was I talking about with that comment, and basically like what I meant was like every generation of wrestling believes theirs was the best. It's like in every era, like you talk to your parents about something, they're going to say their era was better or this and that. I take it back to football, and you talk to guys who played in the fucking 50s and 60s, they're going to say, oh, our era was better. We used to line up tackle to tackle, run wishbone, and games would last, freaking 4 hours, or games would be, played in the mud, dirt, and we just, chewed it up, blah, blah, blah. And that's great. And there was a lot of running going on back then, and physically, and, you had the Green Bay Packers with that power sweep they ran, and, everybody ran power eye and wishbone and stuff like that. And then they let black people play, and I realized, man, if you're an athlete, you can change the game. And the game changed. And this new era came in, and the old era was like, it's not hard-nosed enough. It's not tough enough, and then later on, it changed again. And it continues to evolve as you find different pieces, whether it's people or, the way offenses and defenses are designed, and just personnel and all that goes into it, And wrestling's the same way, It evolves, man, and every generation is going to say theirs was better. Back in my day, you hear that a lot. When you talk to legends, they're going, back in my day, we used to do this. And when you look at that old stuff, like everybody knows I'm a big Ric Flair mark, and I use the term mark because I'm a fucking mark for Ric Flair. It's not a bad thing. But I watch him take his bumps on his hip, and the ring placement isn't always where we were trained to land, and things are just done differently. It was a different work rate back then. And it was a different audience, a different crowd. The crowds believed that somewhat it was real, like that they were really fighting, and there was a real contest, so it was a little bit more believable. The curtain wasn't pulled back yet. So it was a different era. And, when I came up in wrestling, I was really into not chain wrestling. Dean Malenko's one of my freaking idols. I'm somewhat a fan of Johnny Saint. I don't like a lot of the stuff he does, but I'm a big fan of Negro Navarro, Solar, a lot of Japanese wrestling I grew up watching, and was just big fans of that. Malenko, and I guess it's safe to say Benoit now. And guys like that, I was really big fans of watching them wrestle. And of course, Eddie and them do their thing. And used to be, I remember I had a videotape. There was these things called VHSs back in the day of the J Cup, and it was like, Benoit, Malenko, Eddie was in there, Jericho, Silver King, fucking I want to say like Octagon was in there. They're just like all these freaking like just legends, and that was one of the first exposures I had to cross style of wrestlers that just had good matches doing mat work, and I became a fan instantly, and really loved that generation. But as I got into it more, ECW, CZW, and those hardcore things were really popular. I started doing that stuff because it's what was hot, and it's what we had to do to sell tickets at that time. It was what the era, the time required from a lot of people, and we did it, But I was always a fan of the base mat wrestling, and once I was able to do it, people were shocked that I could do that. But that's just what I like to do. Look at all my students; they're all good chain wrestlers, But I'm gonna say that my era was better. And it's just the way it is, And but when you train people and when you get around this environment of wrestlers nowadays, you have to take into account for they watch wrestling like we did. And I used to think that, okay, it's okay to take tacks. It's okay to fucking take a light bulb to the face. Why? Because I see it on TV or see it on videotapes. And they do the same thing. They watch it nowadays. They watch AEW, they watch some WWE, and they watch things happen, and they think it's okay to do it. And it is okay to do it, Just because I don't agree with everything doesn't mean it's wrong. It's the way everything evolves and everything changes, And I think as a trainer and even as a vet, you have to accept that at some point, that you can't say what era was better, because they're different. They're different. They all have their own things, and just because you don't agree with it and like it doesn't mean it's wrong. And that was really a hard pill for me to swallow. To this day, my kids do stuff that they watched me do, and it gets over. Why? Because nobody else does it. But they do stuff to piss me off, as a fucking rib. Like Titus runs the ropes. I fucking hate it, and he does it every time just to piss me off. Salem's the same way too. They do shit just because they know I don't fucking like it. They slap the leg, and they're fucking. I know they're laughing on the inside, and I'm sitting there watching you, and it just irks me. But they do it to piss me off. But that's just the way this new generation is. They do things that I would never do. So when I do have a match, the rare occasions, I just don't do them. It's because that's just not my style, not the way I work. So that's all what I meant by that was just the generations, man. Everybody thinks theirs is better, but it's not. There's not a case of better or worse or whatever. You have to take into account for back in the 80s, early 90s, when WWE was hot. The indie circuit was hot, but there wasn't so many fucking indies, so guys could still make a living, doing it. It's not very common anymore. Guys can make a living wrestling on the indie circuit because it's just you're not doing shows during the week and stuff, and it's just different, man. It's there's so much wrestling out there and so much access to wrestling via YouTube, internet, all that stuff. There's so much access to it that it's hard for guys to do shows all the time. So with all this new exposure and access, it's really hard to live that old mentality and that old way of the way things were done. So you just have to embrace it, man, and still tell kids what your opinion is, and maybe they'll change it, maybe they won't. But whatever, it's just, all you can do as a vet is give your advice, and people don't want to take it, they don't want to take it, But yeah, so that's just what I meant by that was like generations, man. It's just, you can't compare any generation because there's different variables in it. And, there's certain times where in my career I was making pretty good money, and there's times where I wasn't making a fucking dime. There's been moments where wrestling was dead and it's hot again. So just we got to look at it more critically as vets and just encourage the new guys and help them out, man, and just talk to them and tell them, hey, that looked weak. Like the only thing that really bothers me with some of the guys nowadays is heat. A lot of their heat looks weak. It either looks weak or they fucking blast each other as hard as they can in the fucking mouth and shit. And that's just, you don't need to do all that. But anyways, whole nother video. But anyways, man, that's just that was just my take on the generational thing with the wrestlers and wrestling eras and how they're just different. And we can say that wrestling died. And I think for me, when I say wrestling died, it means back like when guys were going on the road for weeks at a time and guys were making a living doing it. And I said your source for wrestling information was PWI Insider, and that was about it, and trading tapes and shit like that, so that's what I mean by it. And now it's so athletic and so entertaining, and people know what's going on behind the curtain. It's that form of wrestling is dead and a new era has been born. And I'm not saying I love this new era. I don't love everything about it. The booking's really bad, but I love it, and I get excited for it. So anyways, man, just please don't forget to like, subscribe, click the bell icon. If you have any more questions, please let me know. Comment on the video. I'll be happy to talk to you about it or make a video on it. And that is it. Talk to you later.